The big question, are new $2,000 checks really coming? Try 350 words. Imagine waking up on November 1st, pouring your morning coffee, and suddenly seeing an unexpected $2,000 appear in your bank account. For millions of seniors and hardworking Americans living on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits, that kind of deposit could mean groceries, medication, bills, and peace of mind for an entire month. But here's the truth. Over the past few weeks, the internet has exploded with rumors, headlines, and bold claims saying that former President Trump has officially signed off on new stimulus checks and tariff rebate payments. You've probably seen posts on Facebook, TikTok, or YouTube saying checks arriving November 1st or seniors approved for $2,000. And just like you, many people are wondering, is any of this real? In today's first section, we begin by uncovering where this story started, why so many Americans are confused, and what the verified facts actually tell us so far. Because while the idea of a November 1st $2,000 payment sounds incredible, the reality is far more complicated and far more important for seniors who depend on accurate information to protect their benefits and financial security. Let's start from the beginning. The excitement grew after President Trump mentioned that Americans might one day receive payments funded by tariff revenue collected from foreign imports. He described these possible payments as dividends, similar to how a company shares profits with its shareholders. That single comment created a massive wave of speculation online, speculation that quickly turned into misinformation, confusion, and in many cases, outright scams targeting seniors. But here's the key. There is no approved program right now. No official checks have been scheduled. No bank deposits are set for November 1st. And the IRS has issued warnings about fraudulent claims spreading across social media. So in this video, starting with part 1, we will carefully break down what's real, what's false, and what could possibly happen in the future. You deserve clarity, not confusion. And that's exactly what this series will deliver. Understanding the tariff money. Where would the $2,000 come from? To understand why so many people believe $2,000 payments are coming, we first need to understand the source of the money being discussed. Tariffs. This is a word many Americans have heard, especially in the news, but not everyone fully understands how it works or how it affects everyday life. Tariffs are essentially taxes placed on goods imported into the United States from foreign countries. When companies bring in products like clothing, electronics, furniture, or toys from China, Mexico, Vietnam, or other nations, they are required to pay these taxes to the U.S. government. Over time, these tariff collections have grown into an enormous pot of money. In fact, in 2025 alone, the U.S. government has collected over $215 billion in tariff revenue. And that number is not small. It's enough to get the attention of lawmakers, economists, and of course the American public. So when President Trump mentioned the possibility of distributing this money back to the people in the form of dividend checks, social media went wild. But here's an important truth that many people miss. Americans are already paying for these tariffs indirectly. When companies pay higher import taxes, they typically increase the price of their products to make up the difference. That means the higher prices you see on everyday items at Walmart, Target, Amazon, or your local grocery store can often be traced back to tariff costs. So while $215 billion may sound like free money sitting in a government vault, it's actually money that has already come out of the pockets of American families, including seniors living on fixed incomes. And before any of that revenue could ever be turned into rebate checks, it would have to pass through a long list of federal priorities: national debt, Social Security funding, infrastructure, military operations, and many other obligations. Still, the idea of returning tariff revenue directly to the public remains extremely popular because people feel the economic pressure of rising prices. The concept sounds like a relief, but as of today, it remains only an idea, not an approved plan. Part 2 shows us that the $2,000 rumor didn't come from thin air, but neither did it come from any official government action. What President Trump actually said about new payments. Part of the confusion surrounding the rumored $2,000 checks comes from a single televised interview in which President Trump talked about the possibility of giving Americans direct payments funded by tariff revenue. His comments were brief, but they spread like wildfire across social media, often being twisted into headlines that claimed far more than what was actually said. In the interview, Trump explained that the United States had collected a historic amount of money from tariffs on foreign imports. He suggested that after addressing the national debt, the government might consider distributing some of that money back to American citizens. The figure he mentioned ranged from $1,000 to $2,000, and he described these payments as dividends, similar to the profit-sharing payouts that corporate shareholders receive. The key word here is might. Trump did not announce an approved program, he did not say checks were already scheduled, and he did not confirm a payment date. He simply floated the idea the same way politicians often discuss possibilities before any formal policy is created. But as we all know, social media doesn't wait for facts. Within hours, videos and posts transformed Trump's comments into bold statements like $2,000 checks approved, Trump signs stimulus order, Americans to receive payment November 1st. None of those claims were true. Yet thousands of seniors, already struggling with rising prices and shrinking budgets, began hoping that relief was finally coming, and scammers saw the perfect opportunity to exploit that hope. The truth is, even if a president supports an idea, he cannot send out payments on his own. No president can authorize stimulus checks without Congress passing a law. That is how it worked for all previous stimulus payments, including those during the pandemic. So while Trump's comments sparked excitement, they did not create a legal program, a payment schedule, or anything resembling an official stimulus rollout. The idea is interesting, and it could become reality in the future, but today, it exists only as a discussion point, not a government benefit. Why there is no $2,000 check, the congressional roadblock. Now that we understand what President Trump actually said, the next important question is, if the idea is so popular, why hasn't the $2,000 payment become reality? The answer lies in how the U.S. government works, specifically the role of Congress. Even if a president proposes a new stimulus program, Congress must approve it before any money can be sent out. Every major relief payment in American history, whether during COVID-19, the 2008 recession, or earlier, passed through the House of Representatives and the Senate. Without congressional approval, the Treasury Department and IRS cannot distribute a single dollar. Right now, no bill authorizing $2,000 tariff rebate checks has been passed. Not one. No House vote, no Senate vote, no funding authorization, no final approval. This is a crucial point because misinformation online often ignores how the law actually works. Many videos talk as if a president can simply sign an order and instantly create payments. But stimulus checks require legal authority, budget allocation, administrative preparation, and IRS coordination. None of these steps have taken place. There was one attempt to advance this concept. In July, Senator Josh Hawley introduced a bill called the American Worker Rebate Act, which would have provided at least $600 per person using tariff revenue. For a family of four, that would total about $2,400. The proposal gained attention, but unfortunately, it never moved beyond the committee stage. That means it did not receive debate, amendments, or any votes. Simply put, the bill stalled, and without progress, it cannot become law. This legislative reality is why the supposed November 1st payments are impossible. Even if Congress were to start working on a new bill today, it would still take weeks or months before anything could be approved, funded, organized, and delivered. So whenever you hear claims like checks arriving next week or payments already approved, remember this. If Congress hasn't passed a bill, the program does not exist. The hidden cost: how tariffs raise prices for every American. While the idea of $1,000 to $2,000 rebate checks sounds exciting, there's a side of the story that almost no viral post or social media video talks about. Tariffs are not free money. In fact, they often work like an invisible tax on everyday Americans, especially seniors living on fixed incomes. Here's how it really works. When the U.S. places tariffs on products coming from foreign countries, those tariffs are charged to the companies importing the goods. But companies rarely reduce their profits to absorb those costs. Instead, they simply increase the prices of the items they sell. That means when you walk into a store and notice that clothing, toys, electronics, appliances, or home goods cost more than they used to, tariffs may be one of the reasons. It isn't always obvious, but the impact is real. The extra cost gets passed along to consumers quietly but consistently. And for Americans who depend on Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits, every price increase matters. So while the government has collected more than $215 billion in tariff revenue this year, the truth is that this money has already come from everyday families paying more for basic goods. That's why economists warn against describing tariff money as if it were extra, unused cash sitting in a government account. It is actually money that people have indirectly paid through higher prices. Now imagine what could happen if the government returned some of that tariff money through rebate checks without addressing the underlying price increases. People would receive cash, yes, but they would also go out and spend it. Increased spending in an economy already dealing with inflation could push prices even higher. That means a $2,000 check might feel helpful for a moment, but its purchasing power could shrink quickly if inflation rises again. Seniors who already feel the burden of rising grocery bills and prescription costs would be hit the hardest. This is why many experts say the idea of tariff-funded stimulus is more complicated than it appears. Without solving the root problem, higher prices caused by tariffs, giving money back could unintentionally make things worse down the road. Legal trouble. Why the tariffs themselves may not hold up in court. There is another major issue that most people have not heard about, and it could completely determine whether any future tariff-funded stimulus is even possible. This issue has nothing to do with Congress, the IRS, or the Treasury. It comes from the federal court system. A recent ruling by a federal appeals court questioned whether the administration had the legal authority to impose certain tariffs in the first place. The court suggested that the tariffs may have exceeded the power granted under existing trade laws. In simple terms, the judges were saying the government might have gone too far. This is not a small matter. If the tariffs were improperly implemented, then a large portion of the revenue collected, over $215 billion in 2025 alone, could be on uncertain legal ground. The appeals court decided to allow the tariffs to remain in place temporarily while the case moves to the next step, the United States Supreme Court. And this is where things get serious. The Supreme Court has the final authority to decide whether the tariffs are lawful. If the court rules that the government acted outside its legal boundaries, the entire tariff system could be struck down, modified, or suspended. If that happens, the revenue disappears, and so does the possibility of using it to fund rebate checks. This means that even if Congress wanted to approve a $2,000 tariff rebate, they could not rely on tariff funds if the Supreme Court invalidates them. Billions of dollars would instantly become unavailable, and the idea of dividend-style checks would collapse. For seniors and retirees, this legal uncertainty matters because it determines whether the money being talked about online even exists in a stable, reliable form. A stimulus cannot be funded with money that may not legally belong to the government, so when you see claims like checks approved or money already set aside, remember this crucial truth: the future of tariff revenue is still being decided in the highest court of the nation. Until the Supreme Court rules, nothing is guaranteed. Not the money, not the program, and certainly not a payment date. The IRS warning. Scammers are targeting seniors with fake $2,000 check promises. While many people are busy sharing rumors about new $2,000 checks, the IRS and Treasury Department have been sounding a much more serious alarm. Scammers are using these false claims to target seniors. And unfortunately, older Americans are the #1 victims of financial fraud in the United States, losing billions of dollars every year to deceptive schemes. The moment the rumor about Trump approving new payments went viral, scammers immediately seized the opportunity. Fake emails, fraudulent text messages, misleading websites, and even phone calls began circulating, all delivering the same message. Your $2,000 rebate is ready. Click here to claim it. Confirm your Social Security information to receive your November payment. Enter your bank details to verify eligibility. These messages are designed with one purpose: to steal personal information, Social Security numbers, or bank account access. The IRS has made it very clear. No government agency will ever contact you by email, text, or social media asking you to claim stimulus money. There is no program, there is no application, there is no form to fill out, there is no hotline to call. Any message asking you to provide information is part of a scam. Seniors receiving Social Security, SSI, SSDI, or VA benefits are especially vulnerable because scammers know they rely on monthly income and may be more hopeful for financial relief. That hope is exactly what scammers try to exploit. Some fake websites even mimic the IRS portal, showing official-looking seals and government-style language. Others claim the deadline is only a few days away to pressure seniors into rushing without thinking. If the government ever created a legitimate stimulus program, it would be announced through the White House, IRS.gov, Treasury.gov, official press briefings, major national news outlets, never through random social media posts or messages. So as tempting as the promise of a surprise $2,000 check may sound, seniors must stay alert and protect themselves from fraud. When something seems too good to be true, especially online, it almost always is. Breaking down the real numbers, why $2,000 checks don't add up. To understand why a nationwide $2,000 payment is unlikely right now, we need to look closely at the actual math behind the idea. This isn't about politics, it's about simple numbers, and numbers do not lie. Let's start with the commonly shared figure, $215 billion in tariff revenue collected in 2025. That sounds massive, and it is. But when you divide that amount across a population of more than 330 million people, the reality changes dramatically. If everyone received an equal share, the average payout would be about $650 to $700 per person, not $2,000. But it gets even more complicated. The government cannot simply hand out all tariff revenue. That money must first help cover the national debt, Social Security payments, Medicare and Medicaid, military expenses, federal programs, infrastructure, emergency reserves. After those obligations, the remaining amount becomes much smaller. And even if Congress wanted to issue rebate checks, they would also need a long-term plan to sustain such payments because tariffs are not guaranteed revenue. They fluctuate based on trade policies, global markets, and court rulings. Another key point economists raise: stimulus payments can increase inflation. If millions of Americans suddenly receive an extra $1,000 or $2,000, consumer spending rises sharply. But if prices are already higher due to tariffs, increased spending can push inflation even further, making groceries, gas, rent, and utilities more expensive. So even if a check were possible, the benefit might be temporary, while the cost could be long-lasting. And we cannot forget the legal uncertainty from the Supreme Court review. If the tariffs are struck down or reduced, the revenue disappears, making the idea of stimulus checks financially impossible. When all these factors are combined, the population size, federal obligations, inflation risk, and legal challenges, it becomes clear why the rumored $2,000 payments do not add up. The math simply doesn't support it at this moment. The reality check. What is actually true going into late 2025? With all the rumors, headlines, and social media noise, seniors across America deserve clarity. So let's break down, in simple and undeniable terms, what is actually true as we move into the end of 2025. First, President Trump has talked about the idea of using tariff revenue to give Americans a form of dividend payment. That part is real. He mentioned that checks could potentially be between $1,000 and $2,000, but he never announced a start date, an approved program, or any guaranteed amount. Second, no law has been passed. Congress has not approved any type of stimulus check funded by tariffs or any other source. Without Congress, no money can be sent. Not now, not on November 1st, not at any time until legislation is formally enacted. Third, the IRS and Treasury Department have announced no program, issued no instructions, and prepared no payment infrastructure. If the federal government were truly sending out money, the IRS would publicly release detailed information long before checks arrived. Fourth, tariffs themselves are still under legal review, meaning the revenue being discussed may not even be secure. Fifth, economists strongly warn that issuing payments without addressing inflation could worsen financial challenges for seniors, not improve them. So what does this mean for you? It means that the November 1st $2,000 check rumors are not grounded in any official reality. They are built on hopes, misunderstandings, and in some cases, deliberate misinformation targeting vulnerable Americans, especially seniors who depend on fixed monthly income. But here's the good news. Although the payments are not real today, the idea itself is not dead. Lawmakers may continue exploring rebate-style benefits in the future. Congress could revive proposals like the American Worker Rebate Act. And if inflation cools down and tariff policies stabilize, there may be room for targeted financial relief programs. For now, the most important thing you can do is stay informed, stay cautious, and rely only on verified government sources for financial news. Understanding what is true and what isn't helps protect your benefits, your bank account, and your peace of mind. Final verdict: what seniors should do now and what comes next. As we reach the end of this breakdown, it's time to answer the most important question of all. What should seniors, retirees, and Americans on fixed incomes actually do right now? After weeks of misleading headlines, viral posts, and exaggerated claims, you deserve a grounded, honest conclusion. Here it is. There is no $2,000 check coming on November 1st. Not yet, not officially, not legally, But that does not mean the conversation is over. In fact, the national discussion surrounding tariff-funded rebates has brought forward some valuable awareness. Many Americans are now learning for the first time how tariff policies affect prices, how stimulus programs are approved, and how misinformation can spread faster than the truth. So what should you do next? First, protect yourself from scams. The IRS has made it clear you will never be asked to claim a stimulus, submit your social security number through email, or provide bank information over text messages. Any message that demands action from you is a scam. Second, focus on official sources only. If a real payment ever becomes available, it will appear on irs.gov, treasury.gov, ssa.gov, official press briefings. You will not learn about it first from social media rumors, YouTube thumbnails, or random posts online. Third, stay informed, not fearful. Seniors who understand how government payments work are far less likely to be misled or taken advantage of. Knowledge is your best protection. And finally, stay hopeful but realistic. While there is no program today, future financial relief is always possible. Congress may revisit the concept, proposals may return, and lawmakers may decide that tariff revenue or other funding sources could support a rebate during economic hardship. For now, though, the most important thing is clarity. No checks have been approved, no payments are scheduled, no official program exists. But you are now informed, empowered, and protected because you know the truth behind the rumors. Stay safe, stay vigilant, and stay connected to real updates. Seniors deserve accurate information, and your financial security will always be worth defending.